Liberals are doing the same thing to Kamala Harris, to Jasmine Crockett, that they did to Kamala Harris, right? And it's just something that I've noticed is that every time a black woman, especially within the last 2 years, every time a black woman runs for any sort of elected position of grandiose, right? So right now, Jasmine Crockett is a congresswoman. She's trying to become senator. Let me turn my light on, my key light on, and I will come right back. Much better, mucho mejor. So one thing that I noticed is that anytime a black woman runs for any position of veracity, right? Any big position. Right now, Jasmine Crockett, it was announced that she is running for Senate. Um, and one thing I noticed is that when black women run for these particular positions, the left comes out of nowhere. Um, they come from, I don't know where they're coming from, but they're coming from somewhere, and all of a sudden they have so much to say about this particular person. And I see that it's happening currently, specifically on Threads. I notice it with Jasmine Crockett, right? And it's very reminiscent of what happened with Kamala Harris when she was running for president, right? The left comes out of nowhere. We saw this guy, Moschino Dorito. He's really the one that kind of kicked it off back in 2024 against Kamala Harris, calling her a cop as if that's a bad thing, right? Calling her a cop, calling her, basically saying if you vote for the cop. And honestly, like for me personally, I'm a conspiracy nut, right? So I am one of those people that believes there's something deeper and more nefarious going on. I'm not on the Alex Jones level of conspiracy. Uh, I do think bad things happen out of void, sometimes out of vacuum. But when it comes to politics, I think it's something. I think I consistently think that there's something bigger going on. There's something more nefarious going on. So when Kamala Harris was running for president, and I saw all these people that normally talk about different things like sports, that talk about cars, stuff like that, coming out of the woodwork and making these really nuanced political views, these political viewpoints, right? I automatically was like, wait a minute, there's something going on here. I was of the opinion, like many other people, that there was potentially some money exchanging hands. Again, that's my opinion. I think that some of these people were getting paid in order to spread this propaganda against Kamala Harris. And I think that people are coming out of the woodwork now to do the same thing. Another reason I think they're getting paid is because they continue to do it even after the election was over with Kamala Harris, right? Hold on, give me 1 second. Even after the election was over with Kamala Harris, they're continuing to do it. And I think one thing that I want to emphasize is that, yeah, I think there's money exchanging hands. But let's look at Jasmine Crockett's her ad for wanting to become a senator. Give me 1 second here. I got this pulled up. I pulled it up on YouTube. And so, yeah, this is it right here.
Scribe is how you stop explaining the same thing over
Sorry, guys.
and over at work. Watch this. It'll change your life. Raise your hand if you told your boss how to do the same thing more.
How about this new one they have? Their new star, Crockett. How about her?
She's the new star of the Democrat Party, Jasmine Crockett. They're in big trouble.
But you have this woman, Crockett. She's a very low IQ person.
I watched her speak the other day. She's definitely a low IQ person.
Crockett. Oh, man. Oh, man.
She's a very low IQ person.
Somebody said the other day she's one of the leaders of the party. I said, you got to be kidding.
Now they're going to rely on Crockett. Crockett's going to bring them back.
Very powerful, very engaging. She leans on the stereotype that people have put on her, right? Now, mind you, this is a lawyer. Jasmine Crockett's a lawyer. She went to school, went to law school, went and became a very powerful attorney, and then she ran for Congress. So this is not somebody that came out of nowhere, right? This is not somebody like Marjorie Taylor Greene. This isn't someone like Laura Boebert. This isn't someone like the rank and file MAGA Republicans that just own businesses or just did whatever. This is a very well educated Black woman, right? And so for Trump to say things like basically calling her dumb, right? That doesn't come out of that comes from nowhere. There's nowhere in Jasmine Crockett's repertoire that makes her unqualified or intellectually insufficient for the job. I said it, right? So, with that being said, I think that the arguments that are coming out is that Jasmine Crockett, she takes money from AIPAC, right? And so I did some research. I'm doing research on whether or not Jasmine Crockett takes money from AIPAC. And I pulled up, there's a website called AIPAC Tracker, right? And it pulls up who takes money from AIPAC within the state of Texas, right? So let's just pull it up and let's see what it says. So these are all and the money that they take from AIPAC. So let's start from the beginning. So we have John Cornyn, Ted Cruz, Nathaniel Moran. Now, John Cornyn is a senator. Texas Cruz. Ted Cruz is also a senator, right? And then we go. They take a lot of money from AIPAC. John Cornyn takes almost $500,000 from AIPAC. Ted Cruz takes almost $2 million from AIPAC. So when you see Ted Cruz talk about he's very pro-Israel stance, this is why. Then we have the U.S. Representatives, the House of Representatives. We have Nathaniel Moran, $55,000 from AIPAC. Dan Crenshaw, who, he's rising in the ranks of the Republican establishment, $233,000. Keith Shelf, $50,000. Pat Fallon, $80,000. Lance Gooden, $46,000. Jake Isley, LZ, $133,000. Lizzie Fletcher, $179,000. Morgan Luttrell, $31,000. Michael McCall, almost $890,000. August Pluger, $164,000. Craig Goldman, $118,000. Ronnie Jackson, $122,000. Randy Weber, $103,000. Monica De La Cruz, $113,000. Now let's look at all. We're gonna look at all of them. Nobody's in this chat. That's cool. I'm kind of talking to myself, but that's all right. We have Pete Sessions, $99,000, right? Sylvester Turner, $17,000. Jody Arrington, $44,000. Chip Roy, $44,000. Troy Neal, $17,000. Tony Gonzalez, Jesus, Lord have mercy. He takes more money than Ted Cruz, and he's not even a senator. $2 million. Bruh, this guy, bruh, I need to know more about this guy because that is a lot of money. Beth Van Dyne, $114,000. Roger Williams, $34,000. Brandon Gill, $30,000. Michael McLeod, $36,000. Henry Cuellar, $2.3 million. That's a lot of fucking money, bro. That is a lot of money. Jeez Louise. Henry Cuellar, that is $2.3 million. And he's a Democrat too. Sylvia Garcia, $97,000. John Carter, $59,000. Julie Johnson, $42,000. Mark Vesey, $107,000. Vicente Gonzalez, $266,000. Now, finally, we get to Greg Casar, $0, right? Brian Babin, $44,000. Wesley Hunt, $139,000. Now, I don't see, and these are the people that they're endorsing. These are, let's see here. Yeah. And so I don't see Jasmine Crockett's name on this list. Do you? In-depth research here and see. I mean, we're here. I'm gonna just Google it. Did Jasmine Crockett take AIPAC money? Right. So campaign. Let's pull up her campaign finance. Right. Let's look at it together. I'm gonna stop screen, and we're gonna share the next screen. Let's see. We're gonna share this. So open secrets. This is where people. She raised $3 million for her campaign. She spent 1.5. She has 1.6 cash on hand, right? So let's see. So she has Miller, Weisboro, Oleski. They've given her $117,000. Truist Financial, $15,000. And the individuals gave her $230,000. $15,000 was from the PAC, right? Doctors and Hospitals at Renaissance, $14,500. Healthcare Service Corps, $13,500. Carla, whoever this Carla Jerviston is, this is a doctor. She gave $13,200, right? Top industry were retired people. Law firms, they gave her, and then $224,000 of that came from PACs. They gave her $237,000. And of course, I'm sure these are professional connections. These are from her professional connections. Health professionals, $108,000. Individual, $1,000. I'm sure some of that came from this lady up here, Carla Jervston. And then, of course, 22,000 of that came from PACs. So securities and investment, that's 96,000. The 69,026 of that came from PACs, right? So if we look at this whole amount, this amount came from individuals, this amount came from PACs. So if you add these two together, add these two together, you'll get these numbers right here, right? And then, of course, real estate. $75,000 came in total. 50,000 came from individuals. 25,000 came from 25.5 came from PACs, right? And then, of course, let's look. So based on open sources, based on open sources, right? Based on the Texas congressional delegation and the AIPAC track, Jasmine Crockett has not accepted any money from AIPAC. Okay? And so I find this notion that leftists have that, she's bought and sold by Israel is completely false. It's a false narrative, right? I don't know. Message redacted. Who is this? I don't know. Somebody sent me a message, and I'm sure it's laden with probably a racial slur or profanity. And so I'm not going to open it. So there's that. But the crazy thing about it is this idea that leftists have that Jasmine Crockett is bought and sold by Israel is completely false, right? It is not something that's based in any kind of reality. She doesn't take money from Israel. She doesn't take money from AIPAC, the American Israeli Political Action Committee. She doesn't take money from them. And so, with that being said, I don't know where this hate is coming from, except from a racialized level, right? And then, of course, one thing that we saw with Kamala Harris, and I want to drill home what was done to Kamala Harris during her run is that they would show up at her events and disrupt her events. Now, that hasn't happened to Jasmine Crockett as of yet, but I do see it happening in the future. And it would be based 100% off of false allegations, false accusations. So let's look at some of the events that Kamala Harris was doing, and let's look and see how leftists would show up and basically go after her. Let's see. Share my screen. Meeting and interview. Text condition allegation. Why Kamala Harris? Kamala Harris rally interrupted.
Listen, it's called Connect Team, and it's insane. I don't do schedules or timesheets manually anymore. And it works? Oh, like you wouldn't believe it.
Freedom, like the fundamental freedom of a woman to make decisions about her own body and not have her government tell her what to do. And again, we'll be gaslighted on this. We remember Donald Trump hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade, and they did as he intended. Oh, you guys are at the wrong rally. No, I think you meant to go to the smaller one down the street.
So yeah, that was one of the things that we saw during the Kamala Harris campaign was things like that. And then here's another example of a rally of hers that was interrupted. And this was in Michigan, actually. I believe this was in, let's see here. Yeah, this was in Michigan. Give me 1 second here. Yeah, so let's share the screen. Listen, that's intimate. They're screaming, Kamala, you can't hide. We won't vote for genocide, right? They're talking about the situation that's happening in Palestine right now, in Gaza specifically. 100% on the side of the Palestinians. Me, I am, right? But I didn't see the same energy for Donald Trump. I didn't see the same energy for Donald Trump, and that's what bothered me. Is that I only saw the same energy for a black woman, right? And it was a welcoming who allowed people into her space as a candidate to hear her, and they took that as an opportunity to yell at her and to interrupt her and be disrespectful. And not only are leftists, right? They're doing this, of course, under the guise of a legitimate issue, which is the situation that's happening, the genocide that's happening in Gaza right now. I'm not gonna mince words about it. It's a genocide, right? 100%. They're doing it under the guise of that, but the ire is not directed towards the people in charge. Here's another example, right? And then we're going to move back over to Jasmine Crockett, right? We've already established the fact that she's not taking APAC money. We looked at open sources. We looked at APAC tracker. We looked at all of that, right? But I also want to show how the left essentially treats black people that are running for office, black women specifically, right? And as somebody who's considers themselves a liberal, right? I just think this is abhorrent because not only did you see it with Kamala Harris, which I thought was a fluke issue, but then you continue to see it with Kamala Harris, right? Here's a perfect example. Give me 1 second. I keep saying give me 1 second, but
tailored just for you. Customize every element of your website. And why?
this was during Kamala Harris's book tour, right? Now, mind you, at this point, she's a private citizen. She is not in federal government anymore. She's not in any branch of government. She writes her book based on 107 days of her running for president. And she goes on a book tour, expensive book tour. I know people were paying pretty good money to see her talk. And the protesters that a lot of them protested her when she was running for president, right? A lot of them show up to these book tour events and they start. This is just one example.
So, back to what I was saying.
What you're seeing is that people are doing it in waves, right? When it comes to the protesting of Kamala Harris at her book tour. So once one group gets taken out, the next group, they wait about three to 5 minutes. The next group starts up again, right? And so that's what you're seeing here.
you are soon enough. And you know, I sometimes think about President of the United States.
So finally, you see Kamala Harris get completely frustrated with the wave of it happening to the point where she's like, I'm not the president of the United States. Get out. Go down the street. 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue is a down the street, right? And the crazy thing is, the man who wants to turn Gaza into a hotel, the man who wants to turn Gaza into whatever, he's down the street. Go protest him down the street. He wants to turn Gaza into a resort, and you're protesting Kamala Harris. It's a very misplaced, and that's part of the reason why at the beginning I said I believe that there's money changing hands with this. I honestly do think that there's some money changing hands. Thank you for the 2 people that joined. I'm gonna try to do these every day. You know, as far as like these lives go, but I do honestly think that there is money changing hands, because the anger is so misplaced that it has to be coming from somewhere. It has nothing to do with the situation that's happening in Gaza, even though it's portrayed as that, right? And to me, it seems disingenuous. And I've never had the opportunity to sit down and ask people that are protesting why they're doing this against Kamala Harris when she's a private citizen. But it seems like very vindictive. She's not in office anymore. She has nothing to do with this. When she was in office and when she was campaigning, she was saying that, listen, we want to stop this, right? But for some reason, people didn't think it was legitimate. People didn't think it was, let's just watch the rest of this.
Why don't you go to the White House and talk to them over there?
Why don't you go to the White House and talk to him about it? Listen, that's the truth, though. If you want to make a change, go to the person who could change things. Is that not right? Is that not correct? That is 100% correct, I think.
We have some questions from the audience, so listen up, I might be saying your name. Abby Core wants to know, what words of advice or inspiration do you
The one lady said, are we gonna have problems out of you too? But listen, I don't know. Like, it's really one of these. Anyway, like
We have got to the point where literally anybody.
Okay. Let me stop sharing my screen. Okay, that was weird. So it really is to the point where it got to the point where this is happening even as she's a private citizen, right? What would be the reasoning behind that? What would be the reasoning behind that for this to happen as to someone as a private citizen? Doesn't make much sense, right? And then of course, we see Jasmine Crockett. She's running for Senate. And we are seeing the same talk, right? And okay, so let's see here. And we see on, for example, here's a video that I found. Right, these are people that are talking about Jasmine Crockett and her run. Right, this is one video.
Just record the damn thing over. Do it the right way. Okay, so they're about to run Jasmine Crockett for either the House of Representatives or not the House of Representatives. She's in the House of Representatives now, the federal part of the government. They're going to run her as a vice presidential candidate with Gavin Newsom, or they're going to run her as a House Speaker or some position. They prefer her over Ocasio, Alexandria Ocasio. They prefer her.
Okay, so I don't know what that video was about. I did not mean to click on that. I'm sorry. I am so sorry. I meant to click on the one at the bottom. What Democrats are saying about Jasmine Crockett. Lord.
For years, nearly every solution for erectile dysfunction has focused on one thing: blood flow. And while that's important, it's only
thought it was a commercial.
Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, who is one of President Trump's most prominent critics in Washington, is now running for the U.S. Senate in Texas. The Democrat announced her candidacy at a press conference in Dallas yesterday.
There are a lot of people that said, you got to stay in the House. We need our voice. We need you there. And I understand. But what we need is for me to have a bigger voice.
Now, Crockett's announcement came just hours after former Congressman Colin Allred revealed he's ending his own Senate bid there in the Lone Star State. Here's how he explained his decision while appearing on The Takeout last night.
I had to make sure that I did what I thought was best and for the party heading into November. And I did not think that a brutal primary with a runoff, which as you know, Major, in Texas, that we don't get 50% or more in the primary, you have to have a runoff. That further extend the primary. I didn't think that would serve those folks who had placed their trust in me.
CBS News political reporter Shauna Mazel joins us from Houston to discuss all this. Good morning, Shauna. We see the lights aren't up there just yet. Jasmine Crockett says she's a formidable candidate, but what does polling or other data suggest? Is she right?
Hey, Errol, good morning. It's great to be with you today. Jasmine Crockett said that her internal polling indicated that she had a chance to win this Texas Senate race, and that is why she threw her hat into the ring. But some critics say she's too progressive. She has to run against James Tallarico. It could be a very expensive primary, and it could result into a runoff election due to majority threshold rules here in Texas. Our political director at CBS News, Finn Gomez, sat down with the chair of the DNC just days ago and had the opportunity to ask him about Jasmine Crockett's prospects in this race. Take a listen to what Ken Martin had to say.
I've always taken the view that our job is not to put our thumb on the scale and say, this is the only type of candidate that we should run. That's up to the primary voters to make that decision. And once they've made that decision, then I and the Democratic Party need to fight like hell for whoever that nominee is.
I'm gonna be real with you. I didn't know who the Democratic DNC chair was until just now. I saw this guy. I was like, oh, that's the DNC chair. Like that. That's all I had to say about that.
Including candidates we might not agree with all the time.
There you heard Ken Martin speaking with CBS News political director Finn Gomez about Jasmine Crockett in this race. We will have to wait and see just what happens in this primary come March 3rd, though. Errol?
And Shauna, Crockett is running to unseat Republican Senator John Cornyn. He's facing a tough primary of his own. But what is her potential path to victory? This is a ruby red state.
That's exactly right. Texas is a Republican-led state, and in fact, a Democrat has not won statewide office here in more than 30 years. So certainly a tall task ahead of Crockett. You mentioned that Cornyn is running against Ken Paxton, the Attorney General here. I found it super interesting that Jasmine Crockett, she brought up Donald Trump, she brought up Greg Abbott, she brought up John Cornyn, but she did not mention Ken Paxton. So I think that's a bit of an indicator on who she sees as the strongest candidate. But when I did talk to her about that yesterday after her announcement event, she kind of danced around the question. So we'll just have to wait to see how that Republican primary shakes out as well.
All right, Shauna Mazel in Houston for us. Shauna, thank you very much.
With payroll specifically, Connect Team has cut that time by more than 50%. I'm able to track time with Connect Team and automatically.
Texas Republicans are getting very, very nervous about what is shaping up to be a brutal and strange primary for U.S. Senate in their party. You see, Senator John Cornyn, right, who's served for over 20 years, is now facing a tough race for re-election. He's marred by low approval ratings, but crucially, he is fighting off a primary challenge, two of them actually, one from the state's far-right Attorney General, Ken Paxton, and Republican Congressman Wesley Hunt. Now, on the Democratic side, a rising star in the party, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, has just thrown her hat in the ring, announcing her candidacy hours before the state's filing deadline yesterday. She will now face off against just one primary opponent, young, charismatic state representative James Tallarico. That's after former Congressman Colin Allred, who ran in the last cycle, ended his Senate campaign yesterday to run for a new House seat instead. Joining us, Jasmine Crockett of Texas. Congresswoman, it's good to have you on. This was, as far as I could tell, there was even reporting saying that you had kind of like twin forms filled out and twin cashier's checks about whether filing for the House or the Senate race. So this came down to the last second. Like, take me through what pushed you over.
Yeah, so I'll tell you that I have been telling a lot of people that I was closer to a yes than a no. But I was really concerned. Number one, I was concerned about Democratic unity. I talked a lot about the fact that I really wanted us to have a very strong ticket. And instead of kind of having our star power put into one race, I wanted to see if we could somehow make it to where you could have an option for governor, say if you had nothing but state experience, see if we could have an option for, Senate, see if we could have lieutenant governor, attorney general, and really give different parts of the state of Texas someone to vote for and be excited about. And it's kind of hard to get around a state of 30 million people. We saw that Beto did it. He went to 254 counties, but Beto also literally worked himself into a sickness. He ended up being hospitalized more than once. And so I didn't feel that we should just kind of have, maybe one big kind of race. But hey, at the end of the day, I thought that once the Supreme Court did what they did, that we absolutely needed to do something about getting the right person into the Senate. And it was interesting listening to your previous conversation. The oversight for the Senate, for the Supreme Court, it comes from the Senate. So those are the things that I was looking at, as well as my actual experience on the federal level, as well as being an attorney, and knowing that we need to change the Senate map if we're really going to get things like voting rights, if we're going to get reproductive access, if we're going to get healthcare, we've got to change what's happening in the Senate.
So there's a bunch of stories today about how your entrance into the race is welcome news for John Cornyn. There's like anonymous quotes from his staffers saying like, we're thrilled. There was people citing the fact that the Senate campaign arm of the Republicans had commissioned a poll that showed you ahead in the primary, that they were essentially trying to kind of pull you into the race, with the logic being that your perception and coding among Texas voters is as too anti-Trump, or as too sort of polarizing to plausibly win a statewide election in a state that Democrats have, as we all know, not won a statewide election in like decades. What's your response to people who say, even people who are sympathetic to you, who are like, is this the person that could win like 8 to 10% of?
So somebody made the comment, I like Crockett. I think some of the anger at her right now is because Tallarico has been campaigning for a little bit already and has gained some momentum. Yes. I think that's another reason why people are upset. James Tallarico has name recognition in Texas, and he's been campaigning. He's been doing the groundwork for quite some time. But I'm not in Texas. But I'd be happy to see either one of them in the Senate. And that's just on a political level. I think they're both great. I think they're both good human beings. I just think that Jasmine Crockett, she has the federal experience, right? And she also has the legal experience. I don't think James Tallarico is a lawyer. I think he's a priest. So there's that.
Republican voters necessary to win this race?
So I actually disagree with the characterization that we have to get 8 to 10%. What we know is that in this last election, approximately 51% of eligible voters in Texas voted. What we've not had is someone that could energize our base. That is abysmal. We are always one of the lowest voter turnout states. When you look at when we ended up getting 2 Democratic senators in the state of Georgia, just know it was because they got their voter participation up. And so that's what we plan to do. What we were testing for was we wanted to know, can I excite people that normally don't vote? And the answer was simply yes. In addition to that, we looked at Beto's results because that is the election for us to look to.
Yep.
It was a Trump response type of election.
Yep.
And ultimately, we know that he won Black and brown folk over overwhelmingly. And so am I in polling.
So in the Warnock and Ossoff examples, which do strike me as like the closest model, right? In both those cases, it was a bit of both and though, right? They definitely juiced turnout, and they definitely got high levels of turnout, but they also did win crossover voters. I mean, there's a pretty significant slice, and particularly if you look at those precincts and those Atlanta suburbs, particularly. So it does seem like both of those are necessary, particularly when you're looking at the numbers that you're staring down in Texas, which is, again, numerically, it's like it's not an easy place to win.
I took control, went solo, and built my own online knife empire.
No, I think that you're absolutely right when you say that. But I think what we've got to look at is that when you look at, say, the district in Tennessee and the fact that Trump had won by a little over 20 points, yet somehow it swung to a single digit race, then we know people that voted for Trump, well, some of them are regretting those votes. We just saw an election today down in Miami where a Republican was outed, and we know that they hadn't been able to win in 30 years down in that area. We also know what happened in Mississippi where they flipped 2 Senate seats. We also know what has happened in Georgia where they were able to get 2 statewide seats. So here is the reality. I don't think anyone who is super in love with Trump would ever vote for me or any other Democrat. That is just the reality. I think what it is who is going to talk to people and make them understand that they will fight for them. That is why you have Mondami Trump voters. That is why you have AOC Trump voters. That is why you had Obama Trump voters. Let me tell you something. Mondami has not backed down whatsoever from his rhetoric against the president. In the Oval Office, he stood there and he said what he said about him being a fascist, yet he was able to win those voters. So Democrats that believe the only way that you can win is by being soft and sounding like a Republican, that is not true. What people are looking for are people that are tough and are fighters and are going to fight for them, fight for better health care, fight for access to jobs, fight for education. That is what they're looking for. And that's what it is that I have to offer.
Yeah, I want to just, you mentioned this, so I want to bring it up. In Miami, Miami had a mayoral election tonight. It was a runoff. That city has not had a Democratic mayor, I think since the 1990s, nearly 30 years. The last election, 2021, the incumbent ran for a second term and he won by like 75 to 15. So tonight, the Democrat is going to win by between 10 and 20 points when all is. I mean, so there is something happening in the country right now. I want to play very quickly your ad that I thought was pretty interesting. This is the first ad I've seen from your very new campaign. Take a listen.
She's a very low IQ person.
Somebody said the other day she's leaders of the party. I said, you got to be kidding.
Now they're going to rely on Crockett. Crockett's going to bring them back.
This is obviously a shot across the bow that this is going to be a campaign about Trump. Do you think Trump that Trump is going to figure prominently in this one way or the other?
I think so. I think it's hard to say that he's not. I mean, when you see election wins like the one that you just referenced, obviously it's Trump's policies that are on the ballot. Right now, we have a senator that has decided that he won't fight for Texans, but instead he's decided that he will do whatever Trump tells him to do. We are one of the largest trade states in this country, in this nation. And unfortunately, we have somebody that will not go up against the president to protect our people that are doing trade in Texas when it comes to the tariffs. Or we can talk about the record-breaking number of farmers and ranchers that are filing for bankruptcy. And we do everything bigger in Texas, including agriculture, and he's not fighting for them. So I think right now it's just going to come down to the basics. Who's going to have your back? And the answer is Jasmine Felicia Crockett.
Jasmine Felicia Crockett.
Jasmine Crockett, new entrant in that U.S. Senate race. We'll be right back.
This video was created by AI. It's Cyber Monday and content creators.
But are you fired up? Are you ready to go?
You guys,
All right,
I have
Texas.
to
Let's get down to
I have
it.
to go to the bathroom. I'll be right back.
I know y'all are ready to hear some good news, and some of y'all already heard it before you even got here. Yes, it is true. I am running to become your next United States Senator, Texas. I honestly can't put into words what it means to me. You see, a lot of people think that making decisions like this, you take them lightly. I'm here to tell you that I understand that there's a responsibility. I'm not reading from my script, so they're about to be confused. There's a responsibility that lies with all of us, especially in this moment. There are a lot of people that said, you got to stay in the house. We need our voice. We need you there. And I understand. But what we need is for me to have a bigger voice. What we need is not only a voice, but we need to make sure that we are going to stop all the hell that is raining down on all of our people. So over the last couple of months, I've been thinking about our future. Where do we go from here? And obviously, I've been thinking about Texas. I thought about my classmates from law school. One is standing right up front, Mr. Anthony Farmer. I thought about the big dreams we all had, fighting for justice in the courtroom, starting our own businesses, buying a home, starting families. If you think about it, our dreams were the American dream. Opportunities for those who work hard, home ownership, jobs, entrepreneurship, and security. And that time we were headed into the Great Recession. I took a job in Texas for a pretty well-known family-owned law firm. I began doing class action defense work. And honestly, I wondered if I'd made a mistake. I wondered if that was really what I was supposed to be doing. It just so happened that they had just started a new public defender's office in rural East Texas. And so I decided that I would join that public defender's office. I joined it because I believed everybody deserved a voice in the courtroom. Even if they couldn't afford an attorney, one would be provided to them, and that attorney was me. I loved being a courtroom warrior. I got some judges here. They probably can't identify themselves, but nevertheless, I loved being in the courtroom. You know, I never thought that I would run for office, but some people are able to inspire others as they walk their own path. As a 27-year-old public defender walking in her path, there was someone who came along and inspired me. There was this charismatic, funny, intelligent, and exciting young candidate with a funny name who just got into the US Senate and was running for president. Many doubted if this country was ready, while others, well, we got to work and kept hope alive. We didn't focus on the naysayers. We didn't get distracted by any pollsters. We remained laser focused on getting the person who was best for the job into the seat. We didn't let history diminish our hope in what was possible. We ignored that the devil on our shoulder that sometimes tries to tell us your vote doesn't matter. The country's not ready. He can't win. And responded with that timeless American creed. Yes, we can. Yes, I'm talking about President Barack Obama. How many no's do you think he heard before he got a yes? No, you can't win. No, the country's not ready for a Black president. No, a Black man can't get elected. No, your middle name is Hussein. No, you can't beat the Clinton machine. But every time they told him no, he looked them right in the eyes and he told them yes. He said, yes, we can. Yes, we can deliver on health care. Yes, we can enshrine equal rights. Yes, we can bring jobs back to America, create opportunities for all. And yes, we can save the economy after a Republican president sends it into the gutter. People ran lies, rumors, and tried to poke holes in everything about Obama, from his faith to his heritage, falsehoods about his daddy, mistruths about his mama. There was even a question about his birth certificate. But he didn't let any of that get in his way. He worked and worked and worked to inspire and instill a sense of hope. And man, do I remember. I remember hoping. Now, I don't know if I really believed, but I knew that we had to try. I knew that we had the power. He turned those no, you can'ts into yes, we cans. Yes, we deserve better. Yes, we will dig deep. Yes, we can. Back then, as the housing bubble burst and the economy crashed, I saw everyone around me struggling. I saw a system that ignored them and legal system that failed them. Then I remembered Obama's words. Change will not come if we wait for some other person or some other time. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the change that we seek. So many of you don't know, but I was 28 by now. And I decided that I was going to run to become the Bowie County Democratic Party chair. I was elected as the youngest Black Democratic Party chair in the history of Texas. Later, I moved to Dallas, and frustrated by the broken laws on our books, I ran for the Texas House of Representatives to be that agent of change. I took on the establishment, ran against an incumbent, and there were folks in my ear, that devil on my shoulder, that said I could not win. I was being outspent 5-1. And even those that said I had to be less of myself, I tuned that noise out. And even though I was outspent, I was never outworked. When I look across this room, I see folks who knocked on doors for me back then in 2020. I see people who believed in me before any viral moments. I see people who believed that I could and would be different. I see the people that locked arms with me. Some of those elected officials that went out on a limb and endorsed me when nobody else would. You see, I didn't get anywhere on my own. Every step of the way has been with you. The people who have fueled this fire. You've chipped in your hard-earned money. Hey, donors, because I see some of y'all too. You put in the sweat equity under the hot Texas sun, knocking on doors, putting out signs. You've driven your neighbors to the polls, dragged your coworkers to go vote. You're the ones who walk your precincts, register thousands of voters, and you're the ones who flip seats across the state at every level. When Texas turns blue, it won't be because of any one candidate, but because of each and every one of you doing your part. Turning Texas blue is what I want to talk to y'all about today. Now, there are those that say, ain't no way, we done tried it 50 kinds of ways. Let me be clear, y'all ain't never tried it the JC way. We used to telling us what I can't do, but they have no idea what Crockett's crew will do. And so I just want to be clear for all the haters in the back. Listen up real loud. We gonna get this thing done. So they tell us that Texas is red. They are lying. We're not. The reality is that most Texans don't get out to vote. The reality is that the people that I used to work with in the Texas House did everything that they could to make sure that they could suppress voices. If we were so red, they wouldn't be so pressed. Let me be clear. The reason that the governor always got time to call out my name is because he understands that I know how to speak to everybody, not just some folk. There are folks who feel like their vote doesn't matter and that nothing will change or that candidates don't speak to them. And honestly, I can't blame them. But I'm here to address those Texans specifically who feel as their vote doesn't matter. Let me tell you it does. Earlier, I talked about my first race for state representative, and I talked about the fact that I was outspent 5-1. They had the money, but I had the people. When the first batch of votes came out, I was down by 700 votes. I told my team it was over. Carmen, who's right up front, rushes down and says, "No, we about to go to elections." I said, "Y'all, it's over. We've been voting for 3 weeks and we down by 700. We ain't coming back." Around 10 o'clock, somehow somebody said, "Rep, you only down." Well, I wasn't rep then. "You only down by 50 votes." I said, "Oh, we getting good. We getting good." I said, "Now y'all tell me what's still out. Is anything out? Are we done?" Because it was getting late. And they said, "MLK is still out." I said, "Oh." I said, if anybody came through for me, it was gonna be MLK. And when I tell y'all, when the votes were counted, I had won by 90 votes. Out of 10,000 votes that were cast, I won by 90. It was the closest state house race in the entire state of Texas that year. Do you know where those votes came from? They came from the mom who organized the entire neighborhood to go vote because she knew I would fight like hell for her daughter. It came from the retired firefighter who talked to each and every one of his or her neighbors in the senior homes and the people that they lived around. It came from everywhere. It came from the churches. It came from home healthcare workers who ran across the street to vote at the library during their lunch break. It came from citizens who hadn't voted in years, but went to cast their ballots because they believed that I would bring a new generation of servant leadership to the government of the people, by the people, for the people. Each and every one of those votes made up the 90 votes we needed to bring change. And I'm gonna add this. It even came from unhoused folk. See, what y'all don't understand is that people like to devalue certain people, but the only place that equalizes us is at the ballot box. So I don't ever want anybody, no matter what your socioeconomic background is, to believe that you don't matter or you don't count, because the time that you count is when you are at the ballot box. A single grain of rice can tip the scales. Every single vote counts, and that couldn't be truer in the United States Senate. It was a single vote in the United States Senate that saved the Affordable Care Act, that saved millions of Americans' health care coverage. That vote was cast by John McCain, who showed bravery and honored his oath of service. Yeah, clap it up. He bucked his party's president to do what was right for his constituents. Sadly enough, we all know that Senator John Cornyn does not have the guts to stand up to Trump. But I can tell y'all who does. I do. Cornyn carries on with business as usual while small businesses across Texas take the hit from Trump's tariffs. Well, I'm done with politics as usual. I'm done with going along to get along, and it gets us nowhere. I'm done watching rural hospitals and public schools close their doors. I'm done watching parents be afraid to send their kids to school or the mall or the movies because Republicans have flooded our streets with guns. I'm done with the senators sitting around doing nothing while Trump takes your hard-earned money, skims your Social Security, slashes Medicare, and gives tax breaks to billionaires. I'm done. I'm done watching the American dream on life support while Trump tries to pull the plug. The gloves have been off, and now I'm jumping into the ring. I'm asking for your support to be the next United States Senator from the greatest state of Texas. I'm running because I don't ever lose focus of the people, what we deserve. We deserve a government that is by the people and of the people, not one that's bought and paid for, not politicians who are self-serving and line their own pockets. Most of you know that I am a civil rights and criminal defense attorney, that I made a living arguing cases before juries and fighting for Texas who were harmed to receive justice. I have won cases and convinced juries in the deepest, reddest parts of this state. And I'm ready to make the case to the people of the great state of Texas. My experience spans both state and federal. As you may have seen, I have spent more time on the federal level than I did on the state level. And frankly, I'm very well aware of what is happening on the federal level, on the deepest levels of the federal level. If elected to the Senate, actually when, I was about to say, y'all slow. I will begin on day one fighting to lower costs, deliver on healthcare, make home ownership and entrepreneurship accessible to all, and hold Trump accountable. I'll hit the ground running because I'm already in the belly of the beast right now. Many people wonder why I jumped in this race so late, and I just want to be clear that this was never my intention. This was never about me. I never put myself into any of the polls.
What if I could build my ideal hiring app with Base 44? Hiring is chaotic, resumes, conversations, disconnected systems. Today, I can finally build an app shaped around the way we work, tailored with our pipelines, workflows, and total visibility. Making an offer is never just a number. I want a tool that calculates salary ranges, equity, benefits, all of it, into one clear view, sent straight to candidates. What else can I add? I set an AI partner that understands how we hire, writing descriptions that sound like me, pre-screening to my standards, so my hiring gets smarter, not just faster. All built my way. My numbers clear, my workflows managed, my data secured. Because in the end, it's not about filling roles. It's about building the team that will take us forward. Base 44, build it your way.
Listen, my question was, which congressional seat would I be running for? And for Texas 30, I love you, Texas 30. Okay, I'm gonna finish. But the more I saw the poll results, I couldn't ignore the trends, which were clear, both as it relates to the primary as well as the general election. I could have played it safe and continued serving in the United States House of Representatives for as long as my constituents would have me. But I don't choose to do that. Because Texas, this moment we're in now, is life or death. It's all or nothing. It's now or never. We find ourselves at a crossroads. We're faced with a hard choice to make people believe. We've got to make sure that they understand that we are not to go back. We are not to allow our hard-earned progress of our mothers to be wiped away. We lose Social Security, Medicare. We lose the right to vote, to love, and live freely. That's one path where we go back in time. The other path is learning to live in Trump's America and shrinking ourselves into the shadows. It looks like people who are afraid to worship or love freely because people are simply right now afraid to walk down the streets. It looks like a country facing denial, bank loan denied, healthcare denied, American dream denied. But I'm here to tell you there is a third path, a path where we move forward as one people united under a common vision, a path where we reject Trump's false promises and reject his lies and division. I'm asking you to walk down this path with me, shoulder to shoulder, and envision a Texas where every child, no matter their story, can go to the best public schools, can afford to go to college, or learn a skilled trade, a Texas where that child has every opportunity to grow and thrive. That means nutrition, healthcare, mental health, and safety. Imagine a Texas where that child grows up and can buy a home with first-time home buyers assistance. Imagine that child wants to start a business and create jobs in their community they live in Texas, where they can actually access some capital to get started. Now contrast that to our reality today, where a child's opportunities are limited by their zip codes. I think about the children in Houston who had their school district taken over by Abbott. I think about the children in Lufkin who went hungry this summer after Republicans cut funding for summer EBT. I think about the young adults and families in Amarillo that would love to buy their own home but can't afford it. I think about the farmer in Loving County who had to find his way to the nearest hospital miles and miles away because Texas has closed more rural hospitals than any other state. And by the way, if you know farmers, it takes quite a lot before they'll even think about going to the doctor. So I know this. This man was in pain, and his pain was ignored and neglected by 3 decades of Republican domination in Texas. And I'm going to keep taking down this path with me. But let's first address the elephant in the room, quite literally. I know many of you are wondering why I'm running for a seat that everyone says cannot be won. The last time Texas elected a Democrat to the United States Senate, I was 7 years old. Do not try to do the math. Cornyn was already 36 and serving as a district judge. For most of us, a Republican-controlled Texas is all we've known. But we cannot let that diminish our faith and belief in what can be. I stand before you because I'm not looking backwards in the past. My eyes are fully ahead and fixed on the bright horizon ahead of us. I'm running for this seat because I'm going to be hung up on the brokenness. I'm not going to be hung up on the brokenness of the past. I'm focused on fixing up our future. Many people have asked, and all of us wonder, can we win this race in November? I'm here to say, yes, we can. I'm also here to say it's not if we can, but if we will. If we will get out and knock the doors, call the people, and meet them where they are. It's a matter of if we will do the work to have the necessary conversations about the future of our nation. Will we come together as one? This isn't about me or them. It's about you and us. This is not about ambition. It's not about my ambition. It's about yours, your hopes and your dreams, and a government that has your back, not pushes you back. No Democrat has done what we're seeking to do, and that is win a statewide election in Texas in the 21st century. So there is no roadmap. There is no blueprint, and there is no cheat code. So for everybody that thinks they got it, just watch and I'll give it to you. This path we're going on together is one that must be forged ourselves. So let's be honest. If there was anyone with the recipe, well, they would have already won. But I also know this. If Mississippi can flip seats, then why can't Texas? If Georgia can elect 2 Democrats to the United States Senate, then Texas can too. In 2012, Mitt Romney won Texas by 16 points. In 2016, Trump won Texas by 9 points. As his administration went on and people felt the hurt, his margin in 2020 shrunk. In 2020, as people were fed up with his administration, as people sat around the dinner table, 500,000 American families stared at the empty chairs. The chairs once filled by loved ones who died from COVID. I remember the long lines, the lines we waited in for rapid testing, the line folks needing unemployment, the long lines at the food banks. Well, guess what, y'all? Under Trump,